We have a couple of cuts here that we can get to. Kelly speaking on a variety of topics, including wrapping up last Saturday night's game at Ole Miss, talking about this weekend's game versus Arkansas, the lawsuit versus Greg Brooks, some of the health status of his wide receivers, and giving his thoughts on a new wide receiver in the room, a 5-star recruit who is now taking reps at a different position and will be here on out. So let's get to this Brian Kelly sound. Here he is yesterday with his opening statement when he took the floor at the Monday presser.
He had other options there. Again, I think, Garrett, as chance of being back. Chris is a day-to-day situation for us, but, I'm pretty certain that we'll augment the wide receiver position this week. I think that's what I think we're most looking forward to is getting some bodies back at that position. Well, no, that's one. But we're going to get some of the injured receivers. We're going to get somebody back, whether it's CJ or whether it's Chris. Somebody's coming back from one of those two guys.
So a little bit of a status update there on the wide receiver room. I would say with him talking about getting one guy back, whether it's CJ Daniels or Chris Hilton, I would put my money behind CJ Daniels. I think that you would get Daniels back here this weekend after missing some time last week versus Ole Miss. And look, that'll be that will be highly welcomed in getting him back. Daniels is sure-handed. He's a really good route runner. He's a guy that when the ball comes to him, he is going to catch it and has shown that. And that's something that LSU could use right now. He also alluded and talked a little bit about it, and there is a soundbite that we'll get to when he's discussing it. But Trades Green, who caught a touchdown last week versus Ole Miss early in that game, LSU's first touchdown of the game, he was working out of the slot. He was working out of the inside wide out position, and they talked about that move being permanent yesterday. That Kelly said that's going to be something that LSU sees moving forward, and that is going to stick. And look, I think that's exciting news for Trades Green. It seemingly gets him on the field. You can see his raw talent. You can see just how gifted of a football player and just an athlete he really is. I mean, he's 6'7". He runs like he's 6'2". He is sure-handed. He is a premier elite athlete, right? And it is going to give LSU another weapon, especially inside the red zone, but all over the field that they can now utilize. So Green is going to move there. And it is as encouraging as that is for Green. I mean, there's obviously a big push to get him on the field. Last week we really built up and talked about the opportunity that Shelton Sampson was seemingly going to have last Saturday night, and you saw it in some instances where he was put out there and he took the field. And there was a target towards him late in the game where it looked like him and Nussmeier had some type of confusion. Nussmeier threw the ball inside. Sampson just stopped on his break and sat down right there. There was some kind of back and forth between them, you're supposed to do that. But, being able to sit where I was on Saturday night, there was a couple of things that I marked kind of going into the game of what I wanted to watch. And one was going to be the interaction of Shelton Sampson, of just how does he handle him, the body language on the sidelines? Is he standing next to the coach to get into the game? Is he a guy that's going to, really kind of not accept not playing in an opportunity like he had Saturday night? And I got to be honest, I was discouraged on what I saw. And obviously when, you hear news about Trades Green being shifted into a position where he can play more wide receiver, and then you see what happened on Saturday night where they're missing CJ Daniels, they're missing Chris Hilton, they're missing Kyle Parker, they're missing all of these guys that usually rotate in at that spot. And, Shelton Sampson's still kind of getting what I would call, kind of a breadcrumb of an opportunity, right? Just sprinkled a couple of reps inside of a game where I really felt like he was going to play the majority of the snaps. Like, you looked around out there and you were thinking, hey, man, they need somebody to step up. Kyron Lacey's doing his job. Aaron Anderson's doing his job. Who else can get out there and get some attention and catch passes? And, a year and 6 games in to a career of what Shelton Sampson accomplished in high school, and for him to be not on the field and producing and getting to a point, I know it's a different position, but it's still another name that you're bringing into the room where you feel like you should have the guys. If you have a real big need at wide receiver, to me, that room, you shouldn't have to go outside of that room. Right? I mean, you've got guys with versatility. You've got guys that can play multiple positions and run, from different spots. It's a great sign that Trey'Dez Green is going to be on the field. It's another weapon for LSU that is obviously going to be tough to guard and tough to match up on. It is discouraging to hear that they have to go outside of the wide receiver room to find a pass catcher when it seems like, hey, man, a year and 6 games in, a 5-star and a lot of services, a 4-star, as solid of a 4-star recruit at that position that has been brought in and did things at the high school level on the 5A high school level, which, I think deserves the respect that it brings. And he's not making the impact that you got to bring a guy in to the room. You got a couple of guys, multiple guys missing, and he can't get in there and make plays. I don't know, man. I pull for Shelton Sampson because he's a local kid. I played against his dad. His dad was an absolute dog. I mean, like a dog at Redemptorist. One of the state's best running backs to come out of Louisiana in the last 25 years. No question about it. Went on to Northwestern, had a great career there. I mean, Shelton Sampson's name in Louisiana high school football, Shelton Sampson, senior and junior, both moved the meter. And I thought Junior was going to get to LSU and have a really big impact. And just watching him play in high school, the fluidity that he moves with. I mean, you're talking about a really, graceful looking athlete when he's out moving, running in the open field, jumping up, catching the ball over people. I mean, he's a big time athlete. Why it hasn't translated to SEC football in LSU, I just don't know. I left Tiger Stadium excited for the win on Saturday night. I thought the atmosphere was awesome, but I left a little, man, I wish it had worked out a little bit better for Shelton Sampson. There was high expectation for not only this show on Sampson, but, people around, sitting around there. People were talking about him. Shouldn't Sampson be out there tonight? Shouldn't he be getting some of these targets? Where is he at? Why is he not out there? And it's a fair question. It really is. And I think moving Trey'Dez Green into that room brings more of a spotlight of just how it's not time yet, I guess, on Sampson. But a year and 6 games in on a, solid 4-star, some services 5-star recruit at that position where LSU could use the help, I thought he would be contributing.
Especially for what you were looking for during that Ole Miss game where it was obvious that they were trying to take the top off the defense at some point. Then they pivoted to going more horizontal than vertical. But early on, they were trying to go vertical. I think 14 of Nuss's throws were over 20 yards in the air, and you completed 4 of them. And 2 of them were on the last, was in overtime and the Aaron Anderson touchdown. So the last 2 throws. And for what Shelton Sampson does well It feels like he could have stepped into that Chris Hilton type role that you needed badly to be able to kind of bust that defense open. And I just don't understand how that doesn't translate. Like, brother, you run a 4-4, 4-3, just go and run. You don't have to make it too terrifyingly difficult where don't even give him a choice route. Just say,
yeah,
go.
Take that Chris Hilton role.
Just go.
Just
go run as fast as you can and
put your head down.
Yes. But that's why I think it's – and while I see what you're saying with the move from Trey'Dez Green, I think it's almost a move out of necessity. Like you said, you would think Shelton Sampson would have taken that role because there's been nothing but air and opportunity there with Chris Hilton gone, and nobody's really stepped up. But you saw how impactful not having C.J. Daniels was.
Yeah.
Where everybody kind of moved over and was asked to do a little bit more. Like Xavier Thomas was asked to take the top off the defense. That's not what he does. Like, you put Aaron Anderson and him in space, but they're not a flatline speed guy. They're put him in a phone booth and try to tackle him. And you saw them kind of, which I give Joe Sloan credit for kind of changing the game plan, but I think you just look at Trey'Dez Green and go, if you've had red zone issues, there's your answer.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about tight end anymore.
Well,
because Mason Taylor ain't coming off the field.
No. And Trey'Dez is
a problem.
He's just such a mismatch. And the way he can run is so special when you talk about his frame. You just rarely see a guy with that type of size, speed combination. And, I think you look around and you say, you got to take advantage of it. He's too much of a cyclops. You know
nightmare.
what I mean? He's just, he's an absolute nightmare. So, look, I am still pulling for Shelton Sampson. I hope it works out for Sampson in today's college world where, you could be at LSU today and you can be somewhere else tomorrow. I hope they're able to really kind of, keep him. I don't know anything. I haven't heard anything. But these usually feel like the scenarios that those are options on. A guy that has high expectation gets opportunity. I don't think that Sampson can say that he doesn't have a chance. I mean, I saw somebody say inside the chat that you're not at practice every day. No, I'm not. But when you get to the game on Saturday and I'm there, it's usually the people that are playing or performing well in practice that are going to be playing. And Sampson got chances on Saturday. Whether it was out of necessity or whether he earned it, I don't know. But he was out there, and there were footballs to be had. I mean, LSU, usually when they're at full strength, Kyron Lacy's going to eat, Mason Taylor's going to eat, Aaron Anderson's going to eat, and then everybody else is going to kind of fight and scrap and claw for theirs. I mean, the ball could be – they were looking for more pass catchers on Saturday night. They needed guys to step up. Mason Taylor and Kyron Lacy they exhausted themselves on that. Aaron Anderson, for that matter, too. They needed other guys to step up, and I thought Sampson was going to get his chance. Hopefully he can hang on. Hopefully he can hang in there and continue to battle and continue to develop. And, when it's his time, it'll be his time. Because if you saw him play in high school, man, Shelton Sampson Jr. is a special athlete. He's a guy that can, you think 5-star wide receiver, and LSU's had some really good receivers run through here. Coming out of high school, he felt like the guy. He felt like the part. He felt like the one that could step in and carry on what had been